All right. Hello, hello, hello. I think it's about time that I made a theme song or something. That's what I think I need to do. Well, I'm monitoring the stream here to see if audio is working. Yep, audio is working. I'm gonna check a video here, make sure that's transmitting, then I'm gonna just jump right in.
It will be a big revolution to bring companies and
Love this guy.
governments to really give importance to the long term. That would be a revolution.
Okay.
In some ways, it would be.
All right. So let's get her going. I have to check that a little bit later. Oh, come on. For some reason, Alexa decided to fire up over here off screen. See if we can just get rid of this. You can't see what I'm doing. There we go. Okay. This is out of the book of Revelation. Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had two horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the second beast. Sorry, I have just turn the volume down there. Let's try it again. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people, and by the signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. I don't know, it was bullet to the ear. Does that count? Anyway. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. Also, it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is, the name of the beast, or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Well, this is a pretty famous passage, even if you're not a Christian. And the main observation I would like to call attention to at this particular moment in the podcast is that we are on the verge of being, for the first time, a world in which this scheme is technologically possible. Okay, so yeah, I'm a Christian. If you've watched my podcast closely, you figured that out. But I don't try to beat people over the head with it necessarily either, because I'm about something different in this particular podcast. But if you are a Christian or not a Christian, I think you should notice that this ability to make it so that you must have we'll call it a piece of technology in order to buy and sell was never possible before. Not technically possible, not like technologically possible, but we are on the verge of it being technologically possible. And I'm going to go into some examples of that if you don't know already. And maybe a good example, if you don't have any clue at all of what I might mean, because I guess to some degree I'm kind of thinking that a lot of the people who are going to come watch this might already have some of the same concerns. But maybe you notice that in the country of Vietnam over the summer, more than boy, was it 80,000 bank accounts were closed. Let's find it here real quick. Uh, 86 million bank accounts. So this very recently happened, right? Um, they just closed them. They deleted them, right? So all their money was gone because people refused or would not or could not um, obey the biometric verification rules. So that's kind of like the mark of the beast, right? You've got to follow the rules, and because it was all digital, all they had to do is press a few buttons, and it was over. I have another passage from the Christian scriptures to read before I get into it in more depth. This is from 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Similar in some ways to the first one. Where should I start here? We'll start at verse 8. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord Jesus will kill with the breath of his mouth and bring to nothing by the appearance of his coming. The coming of the lawless one, this is basically the Antichrist. The coming of the lawless one is by the activity of Satan with all power and false signs and wonders, and with all wicked deception for those who are perishing because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. Therefore, God sends them a strong delusion so that they may believe what is false, in order that all may be condemned who do not believe the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness. The key part that I want to call attention to this is similar to the passage in Revelation. This entity will have all power and false signs and wonders. And there will be a strong delusion. In other words, it'll be compelling to a lot of people. To go back to Revelation, look at this again. I'm looking at like verse 15, maybe. It was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. So, in other words, what has happened is this beast was injured and thought dead, but essentially seemed to come back to life, and now it's got these powers. Verse 13. Performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven in front of the people, and by the signs that it is allowed to work. So this, in other words, whatever this entity is going to be able to make a compelling argument for its veracity, for why it should be taken seriously, and people will go along with it, right? They'll believe the delusion. Now, is this Donald J. Trump? Well, I'm gonna build a case, and spoiler alert, dare I say, it's kind of a stretch, at least right at this moment, to argue that Trump is the Antichrist. But there are aspects of what he is doing that I think are very worrisome. So now maybe just kind of looking at verse 16 here. It causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and enslaved, to be marked on the right hand of the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. That is the name of the beast or the number of its name. I don't know. That sounds bad to me. like setting aside any religious element. I don't like this idea. I don't like the notion that you have to be comply with the powers that be in order to make transactions. I don't like that. It's very possible that if you're watching this, you do like that. Probably, I would have to guess, you know, just from my experience at least, if you are a progressive, the idea that you can micromanage the economic affairs of your fellow man, right down to if they buy a pack of cigarettes at the gas station, if you're a progressive, that whole idea probably like makes you ejaculate. Like you just like, oh, such a warm feeling. Oh, I get to control what my fellow humans are doing for in my quest for the uh, perfect society. If you're AOC, you're all over that. If you are AOC, you get all warm and fuzzy too. Um, you know. Anyway, but I think for most of us, or many of us, or a lot of us, certainly of a libertarian bent, um, this notion is just repelling. It's abhorrent. It's disgusting, and I think that there are going to be a lot of people whom I guess we'll call them normies, who will just fall in with any scheme like this, and only later discover that wow, this really sucks. I went to the grocery store to buy some tuna, and I didn't realize that the government had decided to flag all the people who buy tuna and just close their accounts and delete them overnight, like they did in the Vietnam scenario. I know that that's a kind of a random concept, but that technology, we're on the verge of having it. And, all you wanted was some tuna. And instead, you got your accounts completely frozen or deleted. That is where we're going. Now, why would I think that, or propose for the sake of this conversation, that Donald J. Trump is the guy? And for that, we're going to have to go on a long journey here. And I'll try not to take up too much of people's time. But there are very worrisome things coming down the line. And notwithstanding what I said about Trump not probably actually being the Antichrist, he is the center of the storm. Um, to me, a more plausible scenario is he will build an infrastructure that is taken over later by some other person or entity or whatnot, and um, it'll be used against us at that time. And you know, Trump should have known better. But by the end of this, we might almost understand why um, Trump would feel completely right in doing what he's doing. Now, I do have to say that I do know that there's a real danger that people who are attracted to the I don't want to call it clickbait because it's somewhat of a serious proposal, sort of, are going to be like anti-rabid, anti-Trump people. But I'm going to say, put it out there that I like Trump. I like a lot of what he's done. Um, I think he genuinely wants to improve America. I think when he says he wants to make America great again, just scratch off the word again. He wants to make America great. And I think he probably really does want world peace. And I think that a lot of the things that he's been doing are things that I really resonate with. So when I say this, I'm not saying this as a when I in other words, I'm not a hater. So when I'm putting forward this stuff, I'm it's not as someone who is like was at the No Kings rally over this weekend and was like some old person shaking my raggedy gray beard at people for wearing a Charlie Kirk T-shirt. No, I actually I like Trump. I think he wants the best, which is maybe a stretch because I don't think any person who wants to be president is probably any person. is psychologically healthy. It's probably some extreme narcissism in there. I'm not denying that. But I generally like the guy. And so far he's been a great president. And if we can shake what's coming a little bit here, maybe maybe I just need to get into it. So let's set the stage here. Let's see here. U.S. national debt clock. The last time I checked on this page, it like freaked out on me. It's pretty annoying. So here's I think the what is motivating a lot of what I'm going to be talking about. Probably you're familiar with the U.S. national debt. As you can see there at the left, it's almost $38 trillion. And for a long time, the national debt, the figures has been considered to be unsustainable. Down here, see if can you see my mouse? Where it says the federal debt to GDP is at 120%. A lot of economists have said that's pretty much unsurvivable. So I think in this context, if I'm going to put the best possible spin on it, and maybe it's a little bit delusional, but my feeling is that Trump, being the narcissist that he is, but also a guy who somehow pulls off miracles, has decided that during his term, he is going to once and for all going to solve the national debt problem, the thing that nobody else could do. And we see this with his remarks with the Middle East peace and what he wants to do in Ukraine. Like even with the Middle East peace, if you listen to his comments, he's like, nobody else has been able to do this. Only I can do this. I'm the greatest. Look what I did. No other president's been able to do what I've been able to do. And as far as the debt goes, it's pretty clear that no president has been able to resolve this issue either. But there's been some problems with Trump trying to resolve the national debt problem. So if we just set aside the whole first term, I don't think he really intended that first term to deal with the debt as much as I wanted him to. In the second term, we went right out the gate with Doge and trying to trim down the government and spending in that way, and it was a total flop, right? You could not propose cutting anything in the federal budget without radical leftist liberal progressive nut jobs freaking out, right? Like a progressive nut job like AOC looks at 38 trillion and says, "Oh, that's nothing. Why not spend another $50 trillion? Who cares? Whatever," right? And I mean, I don't know what's the problem with their brains. Like the best case scenario, if we're gonna put the best construction on someone like AOC, is like she really means well, right? But she doesn't know how to do any math, and she thinks that her good intentions outweigh math. It'd be kind of like, well, I don't need to go into a tirade about AOC, I guess, but they want free healthcare and free education. We could probably list a lot of free things. Now, I would just like you to note, we do not have free healthcare and we do not have free education. And even without doing that, without having those things, we still have $38 trillion in debt. That's not counting the unfunded liabilities, which this website helpfully gives. It's right down here. a lot of people don't think about this number here. You see it, $104 trillion that gets added. And of course, there's the state debts, which, where is it? Right here. Another trillion right here. See, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not. Okay. We don't, so we can't even afford to do what we're doing right now without going massively into debt. And on top of that, they still want the free health care and free education. We can't even afford what we're doing. It's just obnoxious. And I think Trump has said to himself, you know what? No one else can solve this. I'm going to do it. I'm the guy. Yeah, thanks, AC-13. I think you're right. They live in a magical fantasy land. And I don't know. It makes me sad because it would be nice if we could unwind this in a sensible way. But I've been around for a while now, and it's pretty clear that no politician has the guts to tell the people that they can't have the benefits that they want. Their taxes would have to go up. And now we're at a point where your taxes could go up to 100% and it still wouldn't make a dent. Right. So that's been my experience. And trust me, I'm not saying that I want all those government services. I'm not that guy. But I'm just saying that it's been unsustainable for a long time. And Trump, I think, wants to solve it. So how does he want to solve it? Well, this is where things get a little bit crazy. So I told you that the Doge Act failed. In July, let's see here. I have a tab ready to go. But where is the tab? Here we go. In July, the Genius Act was passed. The Genius Act was, to my knowledge, the first congressional attempt to regulate stable coins. And of course, it wasn't just Congress because Trump did sign it. But there's really crazy stuff going on here with this, because what this regulation required was that for stable coins to be linked, like explicitly, as part of the regulation, it has to be matched dollar to dollar with U.S. Treasuries or liquidity, like stuff that's liquid. So Bitcoin and gold would be potentially some examples. Why can't I get this thing to move over? It's because my mouse is way over there. Let's try it again. Here we go. Okay, so let's see here. It defines stablecoin. It also requires only certain entities can now even do a stablecoin. They have to get permission from the government to even exist. And where is it? Where's the stuff about the? Here we go. It has to be backed by Treasury bills. We'll come back to that, I guess. Government money, market funds, central bank reserves, and any other similar government-issued asset approved by regulators. That's your gold and silver. Or, excuse me, gold and Bitcoin. Probably, anyway. So a Treasury bill is a loan that's given to the government. I mean, the government says, hey, will you give us some money? And in return for that money, that loan, we'll give you a percentage in return after a certain amount of time. And over the last 10, 15 years, since 2010, with quantitative easing under Obama, the buyers of treasury bills, the market for buyers has slowly been dwindling. In other words, people don't want to buy the treasury bills anymore because people don't trust the U.S. dollar. Um, we're talking about a multi-decade process here. Stay with me here. This will make sense by the end. Um, so Obama, to bail himself out, um, compelled the Federal Reserve to do quantitative easing, and they were printing U.S. dollars by the tens of millions of dollars every month. Now, if they had not done that, remember this is the following the great financial crisis of, the implosion, the bubble of the housing market, and all that other stuff. That we feel like we've gotten, like the idea is, well, we made it through. Well, the only reason why we quote made it through was because Obama said, basically, the economy is not going to collapse on my watch, and they printed as many dollars as were necessary to keep the economy afloat. This is also the rise of the Tea Party, right? The Tea Party came up, totally transformed the electoral landscape, and but quantitative easing basically sucked the oxygen out of the anger that motivated the Tea Party, because the collapse never came because they just inflated it away. But other countries noticed that the value of their dollars were going down. Now, so think about it this way, right? If it doesn't make any sense, let's say you borrow $100 from somebody, at today's market value, whatever that might be, and then the person goes and that person is also allowed to make new dollars, and he prints 1,000 new dollars right off the bat. So you're looking at the $100 that you just loaned, and you observe that they just printed another $1,000, and you think to yourself, "Well, shit, my my $100 aren't worth very much at all. Really, they can just print dollars whenever they want. So what's the real value of the loan obligation?" It's like, I don't know. I don't know if we could figure out math from just that little example, but we'll say it's reduced by 10-15% or whatever. And so the countries like China, for example, that have been buying U.S. Treasuries, saw the quantitative easing, and they were like, you know what, we don't want to be exposed to that. And so with the decrease in um, people who were willing to buy treasuries, the ability of the Federal Reserve to extricate itself from our financial problems dwindled. But look at what the Genius Act does. The Genius Act requires the stablecoin issuers to back themselves, let's highlight it again, by treasury bills and certain other things which are approved by regulators. Essentially, it said you can continue to exist, but you have to buy our treasury bills. And voila, just like that, they have a new market for US debt. Okay, so this is step 1. This is step 1 of the Trump plan, following, I believe, the failure of the Doge plan. Then, on top of all this, let's see here. What should we focus on here? Well, okay. So a lot. So the stablecoin markets were kind of like all over the place, but this is going to um, directly insert the federal government into the monitoring of the stable coins, right? So there's going to be um I mean, how should I put this? Like okay, so like the vision of crypto, if we could go back in time, I remember when the internet was first coming out. Like I was there. I was a young whippersnapper at the time. Um, I used to get into debates, DOS command line, with people from across the world, um, in 1993, right? Um, and for like a whole decade there, the liberals, of course, complained about the wild, wild west of the internet, and they just fell all over themselves to find ways to regulate the internet. It was very, very important to them. And yeah, there was maybe a few conservatives thrown in there too that were worried about some of the content that people were allowed to say. But it was, yeah, okay, it was the wild, wild west, which basically meant that the government wasn't involved. The government couldn't stop what people were talking about. Couldn't couldn't prevent people from creating discussion forums or other places where they could share information freely with each other. And the rise of the changes that came from the social media environment stifled conversations in a very radical way, and we saw this um, very dramatically with COVID, right? When it was discovered that the federal government put their thumb on the scale with the big tech companies to throttle conversation. So it was no longer a wild, wild west. That's my point, right? The internet is not a wild, wild west right now. Um, YouTube could easily delete this video in a second, like if they deemed it a threat. Even though I don't think the only thing that I've done is said mean things about progressives so far, but that would be enough, right? They could do that, and you would have almost no recourse. You could go almost nowhere. I could post this video maybe at Rumble, and maybe get an extra 5 viewers, that kind of thing. But YouTube's where it's at, right? So if I'm kicked off of YouTube, that's basically the end of it. But in the old days, in the Wild Wild West days, uh, you could do kind of whatever you wanted, and people would just sort of gravitate to you. There were no gatekeepers. Well, crypto's like that, or was like that. Also, there was no gatekeepers to the crypto world. That was the beauty. That was the magic of crypto. You could just go out there. You could create a meme coin. You could create a stable coin. There's all sorts of things that you could do in crypto, and yeah, it was kind of the wild, wild west, and that came with problems. There was perils, right? You had a Lunaterra, which sad story there, no doubt. But but you also had the dramatic rise of Bitcoin, right? Things like that, and you had all that without the government being involved at all, and the government hated that so much. It really pissed them off so much, and now we have the Genius Act, which, in a very deliberate and determined way, now inserts the federal government into a realm that used to be just ordinary people doing whatever the hell they wanted to do. Okay, so this I would contend is a problem. This, like, if we go back to the very beginning, um, the idea of the mark of the beast, it's unless you have it, you can't buy or sell or whatnot. Um, if there were a central bank digital currency, CBDC, and we all had to use it, that's essentially, by any other name, the same thing as the mark of the beast, right? Like, fundamentally, it's the same thing. Now, whether or not it would be abused or not is irrelevant. point is they could do it, and this legislation begins to pave the way. But we're not done yet. So at the same time that we see the Genius Act deliberately insert the federal government into stable coins. See if I do have the tab here. Let's see. Oops, I don't want that one quite yet. Nope, not yet. There we go. Bo Hines, the former the headline says it all, right? The former White House Crypto Council executive director leaves the government and joins Tether, which is, by all accounts, I think undisputably, the primary and premier location of the world's most popular stable coins right now. And hopefully I have the right article here. This is just the press release that shows that he is now in charge of this. So in other words, Trump's crypto guy left the White House, joined Tether, the primary stablecoin issuer, and the I think I did close the tab that I wanted. See if I can find it real quick. Wow, let's see. Okay. No. Okay. Let's try. Let me go back to my history. See if I can find it that way. Let's see. History. Where are you? Here we go. Okay, so Tether and you see the date here, September 12th, 2025. So this is only like a month old, right? So Bo Hines leaves the White House, becomes the leader of Tether, and immediately the discussion is about the USAT, which is, and I don't know if this article is going to say it, but is going to be built from the ground up to be compliant with the Genius Act. So let me read the tea leaves here a little bit, and I don't think this is a big leap. I think what this says, like the implication to me would be that whatever the plan is that Trump has for resolving the national debt, it's going to involve stablecoins, and it's probably going to involve the USAT, right? Because his guy is in charge of Tether, and Tether is about to release this USAT. So the stablecoin, right, is matched 1-to-1 with the US dollar, but because of the Genius Act law, they're going to have to back their stablecoin. What that means is with U.S. Treasuries, with other approved commodities, and the strong rumor is gold and Bitcoin as well, but U.S. Treasuries. So they now have a buyer of U.S. debt on the hook, and there will be a stable coin built by a Trump insider that will be issued. My math says that this will become the new digital currency that by which how do I this will be, you will be able to pay your taxes in USAT, right? Because it's backed by the full faith and credit of the United States, because it's backed by the treasuries and whatnot, right? And what does that mean? What does it mean if you have to begin using the USAT? It means that you have to use technology, right? You can't put USAT in your wallet, right? You can't do that. You can't shove 10 USAT into your pocket and then go to the store and buy a candy bar with it, right? You must have a phone. You must have a device. I don't know what the Amish are going to do. The Amish are toast, I guess, right? So if we go back to the Revelation passage, causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. That is the name of the beast or the number of its name. Now, like I said, I don't care if you're a Christian or not. I don't care if you think there's anything to this, but that's what this is talking about, right? This is essentially the fundamental infrastructure to make this possible. You will not be able to buy or sell without a computer device, a phone, or however that works, which means that simultaneously they will be able to control, throttle. They will know instantaneously how you're spending your money. They will know whether or not you're buying approved items. If you want to go out and buy a Trump flag, they're going to know that, right? They'll know everything. Okay, they'll know everything, and if there's any kind of behaviors that they don't like, they will have the ability, like they did in Vietnam. Sorry, I'm going to try to jump to that. I think I still have it here. Where'd it go? Well, yeah, this is what happens when you don't have a person to help you out here. Well, the point is in Vietnam. We'll just pull it up again. Vietnam bank accounts. Yeah. Here we go. State Bank of Vietnam recently deactivated 86 million bank accounts, just like in an instant. So they can totally do that, right? This will give them that ability. Now, what will they actually do with cash? So this becomes sort of the next leg of it, because even though this what I've described explains how they will have found a way to find new buyers of U.S. debt, it doesn't change the fact that the U.S. debt is unsustainable. It cannot be. There's no way that you can pay it. This is one of the things that I've mentioned on this channel several times. King Kong, go live in the jungle without toilet paper. Amen, brother. I'm going to take a sip of whiskey at that sentiment, because trust me, the thought has occurred to me, and I have looked at real estate prices in the jungle. I'll just say that much. If they confiscated every dollar from every rich person, I said this in a recent video, they still wouldn't put a dent. Okay, all right, they would put a dent in the U.S. national debt, but by doing so, they would like utterly, completely destroy the U.S. economy, because it would require taking every dollar from every single person. It just can't be done. Is the point? You can't do it. So even if you link the stable coin to U.S. Treasuries, you have not actually resolved the debt. All you've done is you've found a way to digitize the situation. Okay, so I'll return to this in a moment. In the meantime, though, there are interesting things happening. So this article is recently posted to the Federal Reserve. You can see the date, August 1st, 2025. Okay. And I encourage you to read this. The article is fairly neutral. It's not like advocating for revaluation. But here's the basic premise. The basic premise is that um, it looks at other times in which governments in the world have decided to arbitrarily, basically like by fiat, revalue the price of gold. Now I don't know if you realize this, but in the United States, up until I don't know the exact date, sometime in the mid 1930s, it was under FDR. They made it illegal for your average Americans to own gold. You had to basically turn in your gold, and that if that's not tyranny, I don't know what is, right? But and then after FDR had all the gold, and I don't remember what the market price was for gold at the time. Let's see. See how far back my chart goes here. Nope, this chart doesn't go back far enough. Let's go back to my link. Anyway, I think the price of gold was like right around $27 an ounce in 1935, whenever FDR did this. And after he had all the gold, basically he just signed a paper, an executive order, fundamentally, arbitrarily declaring that gold was now going to be worth, I don't remember what it was, $32. And then he immediately did it up to like $35. Just scrolling down here to see if that information is here. It's not. Okay. So the FDR thing is not here. So here's the problem. Here's the thing. On the Federal Reserve's balance sheet right now, it has gold certificates because the gold belongs to the United States. And look at this. I don't know if you realize this, but right now the value of the gold on the federal balance, the balance sheet, Federal Reserve balance sheet, is only $42.22. Statutorily, a law has said that the Federal Reserve must value the gold on their balance sheet at $42 per troy ounce. Okay, but what is the actual price of gold? Let's go back and look at it. $4,274. So the law says that gold is worth $40 for the Federal Reserve, but on the market it's worth $4,274 right now. So basically the idea of this article is, like, just to start with, it is, okay, what if hypothetically we just took all the gold that we already have, and it gives us the amount right here. 261 million troy ounces in gold reserves, allegedly, because there's some question as to whether or not it actually exists. We would all like to know it's in Fort Knox, wouldn't we? At any rate, but we'll go with that number, 261. And the point is that 261 million ounces on the Fed balance sheet is priced at 42 million. What if we hypothetically said, you know what, let's just peg our gold to the actual market value? So instead of $42 an ounce, it's 4,000. Obviously, now suddenly the the national debt looks a lot different, because you can multiply that almost by 100, right? Am I doing my math right? Yeah, 100, and suddenly, the amount, the plus amount of your bank account offsets a lot more of your negative part of your bank account, right? But someone has put pen to paper on this and has said to themselves, hey, if the government can just sort of revalue at will, why revalue it at the market rates? Why not just make it whatever amount is needed in order to balance the debt, so to speak? And that number comes out to more. Well, it's there's a lot of different numbers, but the number that I've been hearing is $25,000 an ounce, like overnight. And the rumor by I don't know if we want to what's her name? No, I won't get into that. But there is a rumor, we'll just put it that way, that Trump plans on revaluing the gold reserves that the United States has by July 4th, 2026, because it'll be the anniversary of the United States founding, and he's going to be the president, and it'll be a big hoopla, blah, blah, blah. And he'll have the stable coin to look at, and overnight, he'll be able to take a huge dent out of the national debt. At the same time, it appears that Bitcoin is going to get the same treatment, that the value of Bitcoin will be driven up so that that all, because the U.S. government has Bitcoin in a balance sheet too, the Federal Reserve. I mean, I guess I don't know. I think the U.S. government has it, and then the Federal Reserve like has a certificate saying, we have rights to that Bitcoin. At any rate, the Bitcoin, between the Bitcoin and the revaluing of the gold, suddenly the U.S. debt, that number goes down quite a bit, right? Because of the offset. Then you have the stable coin, right? So what's the problem? Well, the problem is that in this scheme, in order to like how do you drive up? Let's start with this. How do you drive up the price of Bitcoin if you're the U.S. government? How do you do that? Well, you do it the same way that you've been doing it. You print more money, right? That's all you have to do. You have to print more money. And the Federal Reserve has already cut rates, and they're probably going to cut rates again here at the end of October, and they're going to do it again, and they're going to begin quantitative easing again. That'd be my prediction. And as more dollars are printed, the value of the dollar itself goes down, which is reflected in the fact that gold and Bitcoin, their values go up. And then the bulk of it is shifted to the international community by the mechanism of the stable coins. And we actually have someone who agrees with this. I have a video here that I have prepared. This is I pulled this from another YouTuber. I think I have linked in the description.
The financial and crypto world was stunned 2 days ago.
Америка прямо сейчас пытается поменять правила на рынке золота и криптовалют. Вспомните, какой у них долг. $35 триллионов.
Senior advisor to Russian President Vladimir Putin, Anton Kobiakov, recently sent ripples through.
See, there we go.
В общем-то, это два альтернативных валютному сегменту мировых рынка. Действия Вашингтона в этом направлении отчетливо демонстрируют одну из главных американских задач. Они очень хотят решить проблему снижения доверия к доллару. США, как это было и в 30-е, и в 70-е годы, будут решать свои финансовые проблемы за счет всего мира, загоняя всех куда? В криптовалютное облако. Со временем, когда часть госдолга США будет размещена в стейблкоинах, США обесценит этот.
All right, let's just pause that for a minute right there. Just look at that. So this is the Russian finance minister. This is the guy that knows what's going on, right? This was in September, I believe. Um, he says over time, once part of the U.S. national debt is placed into stable coins, Washington will devalue that debt. So just see how that works, right? They when they lower the value of the dollar, so even if they have a 37 or it'll be 38 trillion by that point, $38 trillion debt, the value of that debt will be less because the value of the dollar will be less. And they'll do this by printing tons of money, revaluing gold, and trying to spike the price of Bitcoin. Although there are some other theories on how that would work. And then they will shift this all over into the stable coins through the U.S. treasuries, right? And because the world is still using the U.S. dollar because we're the reserve currency, everyone's using all these stable coins. They have to use the stable coins. Basically, everybody in the world is going to have to use this devalued stable coin debt that is pegged to the dollar. That's what he means by shifting the burden to the world. The world will bear this, not necessarily. Well, Americans will also, but apparently Americans haven't noticed that their value of their dollar is going down. So let's continue.
Долг. Еще раз простыми словами. У них сейчас валютный 35-триллионный долг. Они его загоняют в крипту, в облако, обесценивают и начинают с нуля. Это для тех, кто очень любит заниматься криптой.
Now it concerns.
Okay, so let's see if there's anything else here. Yeah, he talks with the Genius Act. Does a really good job. This guy does a really good job of it. But I just wanted to talk about the give the quote from the Russian dude. So this is like an open secret, right? The only people who don't know about it are the average Americans. Everybody else knows about it. It's kind of embarrassing how uninformed we in America are to what's going on. But the Russian finance minister, he understands it. He sees it. He knows it's coming. So, but my problem is here's the rub. Yeah, okay. There's money to be made from getting it out ahead of the curve, right? Buy gold, buy Bitcoin, buy silver. Let's go back to the prices here. And maybe we'll talk about this a little bit. There's the gold price for 1 month. You can profit from it in the near term, certainly, by having some idea of what's coming and where we're going. But it's the long term that concerns me. The government having the ability to turn off your account, like flipping a switch, is a very disturbing thought. They will not, besides the fact that they'll be able to, that they would have that capability, at the very least, they will have access to all the analytics, right? They'll know exactly how you're spending your money. They'll know whether or not you're buying candy bars, or maybe you spend a little bit too much on booze, right? I mean, just let your imagination run wild, because if they get rid of basically fundamentally get rid of the U.S. dollar as something that you can hold in your pocket and force people to use stable coins, that will give them clear insight into the financial profile of every single person, and they will be able to zero in on the actual individual person. And when that happens, we are at the mercy of whoever happens to be in charge. And right now, I told you at the beginning, I like Trump. I'm not a Trump hater. I, re- I really like what he's doing. But this is, if this is the direction that they're going, this is bad news. Because Trump's not going to live forever, right? He might be great, and he might end up winning the Nobel Prize, but he will die of old age. We hope, I guess. I say that because I know I'm going to get a bunch of liberal haters on here. He will die. He can't run for president forever. And the odds are very good that even if Vance follows up just the way things work, you eventually get somebody else in charge, and they will use the same apparatus that Trump is building to micromanage and do worse to the people. So you can't count on a benevolent agent to be in charge of such an all powerful instrument. You can't do that. It's just a dangerous thing. But like I said at the very beginning, I feel like Trump might feel like he's being forced into it, that the national debt is so out of control that only such drastic radical measures can possibly solve this problem. And my belief is, he wants to be the guy who solves the problem. So it's the only viable alternative that he's aware of. So he'll do it. That's my theory. Okay, now as far as like an objective determination as to whether or not he's the Antichrist described in actually in this Second Thessalonians, it's a pretty weak argument at this point that it would be Trump. This guy, whoever this guy is, and I know a lot of viewers are not going to believe in any of this stuff. This guy is going to be able to have power, false signs and wonders. And then if we go back to Revelation, this guy is going to be able to, where is it? Making fire come down from heaven and earth in front of the people, et cetera, so on and so forth. And I mean, I guess you could make an argument. We could see some things that this could be. I don't know, with the rise of AI, there could be, so whatever this powerful demonstration might be, it could be coming, but it doesn't seem to me like Trump is the guy who's going to do that. But Trump does seem to be the guy who's building the apparatus and the structures for a system in which you cannot buy or sell unless you have whatever technology that they have come up. And like I said before, I don't care if you're a Christian or not. This just seems to be like the reality. Like this moment is coming where the technological capability to decide who will be able to buy and sell is coming. And some people will like that, and other people like me are going to be like totally disgusted and disturbed and looking for the exit door. And I'm not sure if an exit door exists. So I've been, how long has this broadcast been? Let's say somewhere here. Anyways, almost an hour. So I do have a lot of material that is covered that I could share. I will talk about this again, and I'll just do it in another broadcast. But here's what I want to show you. I do want to leave you with this. A couple things. One of the problems with stable coins. I don't know if you saw this, but only like a couple weeks ago, the stablecoin market, they accidentally printed 300 trillion tokens of the PayPal USD. This is what I mean. Like, this is so far from sound money, you can't even believe. Right now, they found it right away, and got rid of it, but and this isn't even the first time. Let's see. Oh, I see. So this one talks about the 300 trillion stablecoin minting era, but this article here talks about how there's been other ones. They accidentally printed some Binance Ethereum, Tether almost also actually did mint a total of 5 billion USD tokens instead of 50 million. So that's like the world that they're bringing in with these stable coins, right? They will be able to instantly add money to people's accounts or take it away. And if they feel that they need to devalue the US dollar overnight, they will simply they will have the ability to mint whatever they need or burn whatever they need in a second. So this has people looking at the metals. This is the last thing that I'm going to say before I sign off for the night. But I will say if you're watching, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in before I sign off. I'll respond to them. But one of the signs that something serious is going on is I don't know if you follow the gold and silver prices in the futures markets or whatnot, but the way it works on a futures market, right, is that they use an entity will use the futures market in theory, like the best possible use is to use it as a hedge against risk. So like a farmer who grows wheat might be worried that some pest will come in and destroy their wheat crop or some weather event or whatever. And so they'll look at the futures market and they might buy a particular contract for a certain amount of wheat to cover themselves on the futures market in case their own wheat harvest were to suffer some sort of catastrophe. Then they will have already locked in a price for wheat. And if nothing happens, they just let the contract expire or they get out of it, they cancel out of it, whatever. And no harm, no foul kind of thing. But worst case scenario, if they have to, the way the futures markets work, they can actually take delivery of that wheat. They can roll up a truck to wherever the wheat is stored and drive off with their wheat and sell it. They bought it at a price that they already fixed months before, and they're still going to be able to come out, maybe not ahead, but break even, right? Because they're hedging their bets. In other words, you can take delivery of what's on the futures market. Well, the same is true of gold and silver. But just as in the other commodities, the agricultural ones, so in the agricultural ones, usually people don't take delivery of a bunch of hogs or heating oil or wheat. Some do, right? Because they have a reason to. Like if you're a hog processing plant, you might want to take obviously take delivery of your hogs, that kind of thing. But for like gold and silver, that rarely happens. Okay, it's rare that someone takes delivery of gold and silver. Yes, again, there are some entities that need to take delivery of it. Like maybe they make batteries or something. They need the silver, or they make CPUs and so they need the gold, that kind of thing. But like I said, that's sort of like the rarity. I say all that so that you understand the significance of this point. The amount of gold and silver that is being taken delivery of from the futures market right now is through the roof. Record highs. People are literally people. When I say people, it's like, who are we talking about here? Who could do this? These contracts are worth millions or tens of millions of dollars. The only people that can do this would be like, for example, a central bank or a billionaire, but probably a central bank. They're driving up trucks to the place where the gold and silver is, semi trucks, and driving away. And that gold and silver is no longer available on the market. So it's probably central banks. It's probably the U.S. central bank. Someone knows what's coming. Look at this price. I have the gold price up here. Let's move it across here. You can see we're at a pretty good high after like September, but this is just the 1 month. Look at the all time. Look at that. Do you see that? This is it's not straight up, but boy, that's a pretty abrupt. Silver is the same thing. I haven't looked at the platinum one. What's the deal with palladium? Well, gold and silver anyway. And that's because as people actually get away from the paper market and are actually taking possession of the physical gold and silver, there's less in the vaults for the paper to trade against or to use as liquidity. Someone is driving off with this gold and silver by the hundreds of thousands of ounces. So that tells me this is coming, and they know it's coming, and it doesn't on the one hand, I'm glad to see that someone is trying to really wrestle down that U.S. debt to really try to solve that problem. Sorry, I thought I'd pull it up here. Here it is. It's never been taken seriously. It hasn't been taken seriously in a very long time. But on the other hand, the method by which it appears that they're going to be doing it is going to be giving the government a huge amount of power. And that power is going to be able to reach right into the most minor of decisions that every person makes, and will give the government the capability to delete accounts, to drop money into people's accounts that they like, to penalize people, to with a couple of clicks, devalue the dollar or revalue the dollar. It's just going to be so utterly intrusive. It'll be like off the scale intrusive. We will have never seen anything like it before. And even if you like Trump like I do, the reality that eventually someone will be in charge that we don't like, who's a real ass, is inevitable, right? And just like they did with, remember what they did with the Canadian truckers? Do you remember that? Forget the Vietnam bank accounts. Just look at the Canadian truckers. They closed all of their bank accounts illegally, but they didn't care. They just did it. But that was just regular fiat currencies. Imagine what they will be able to do if all they have to do is look at your wallet address and flip a switch. You're done. You're toast. There's nowhere to hide. Okay, so I think if we could just quickly summarize, is Trump the Antichrist? Probably not. Is he bringing out the mark of the beast? Probably maybe a preliminary thing, but it depends on obviously what actually happens. But something is happening. Central banks are not just buying gold and silver for no reason whatsoever. They know what's going on. So I'll just take a minute. If anyone has any questions or comments, I will wait to take them. I'll wait a minute while people are maybe typing. We'll see. Otherwise, I will be posting on this a little bit, possibly quite a bit more. In my in the description for this video, I have Kinesis, which is a company that has tokenized gold and silver. So it allows you to be exposed to gold and silver, to have that as an asset without actually holding the physical stuff. But I also recommend holding some of the physical stuff as well. Okay, seeing no questions or comments, I thank you for watching this. Really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I am the Philosopher King 2.0. You guys have a good night and get ready, because July 4th, 2026, I think it's going to be a doozy. Have a good night.